So, Governor DeSantis squashes the squatters here in Florida. That and more. So, welcome to Housing Bubble 2.0 News of the Week, or as I like to call it, another episode of As the Housing Market Turns. Randy Patrick here, putting the realism back in real estate. Today is the 3rd or 4th of April, depends on when I can get this video loaded up. Unfortunately, I'm not in our podcast slash recording room because someone's already booked it for the past few days. They're doing a big project, so I'm up here in another office. Doesn't sound too great, a little echoey and a little bit of light here, and you're going to get highway noise in the background too, so I apologize, but haven't done a video for a long time. It was one that's long overdue. I've got a million things to talk about, but we'll just focus today on the squatting issues. If you've been listening to the news lately, a lot of stuff's going on about the squatters. So, this is what happens when you have a lot of distressed properties, a lot of vacant, abandoned property. You have issues with respect to the economy and people trying to make ends meet. High home prices, high interest rates, high rent prices. People are going to do what they need to do to get in and try to live in a place for as little as possible for nothing. I guess you could say for zero. So interesting enough here, this is actually, I think, a pretty unique situation here. So in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, he signs the property rights bill in Florida that ends what he would call the squatting scam. So this happened, last week, which I think is actually pretty good. And their whole premise is that squatting is a scam that violates your private personal property rights. All right. So his commentary is: we are in the state of Florida. We are in the state of Florida and are ending the squatter scam once and for all. He'll be signing this bill, which will give the homeowner the ability to quickly and legally remove a squatter from a property, and which will increase criminal penalties for squatting. So the whole issue right now is that if you come across a squatter and you call the police, often the police departments will go, well, this is a civil matter. Squatters have different scams. Sometimes people who are in the properties have been scammed themselves. They're legitimate renters slash tenants, but just not renting from the owner, renting from someone who's posed as the owner. A lot of stuff goes on. Again, a lot of stuff, especially in Florida, which I call it the Wild West of real estate. So as far as DeSantis is concerned, you're not going to be able to commandeer somebody's private property and expect to get away with it. We are in the state of Florida and are ending the squatter scam once and for all, which I think, to be quite honest with you, it's a great thing. We have personally experienced this with properties and numerous properties. We actually just had one going on a few months ago. So it was a complete scam. And then once we finished taking care of that, somebody else tried to do it. So it's one of those things where you have to be vigilant. If you have a vacant or abandoned property that you're working on, secure it, figure something out, and you got to check it out because stuff's going to happen that you can't control. All right. So the interesting part here is that the common sense law allows property owners to file an affidavit to prove they legally own a property, which should be very easy. Squatters will quickly face criminal charges once it's proven that they illegally moved into the home. So I like this because, it's not like we have to go through a court process or like the eviction process, and the squatters have an opportunity to fight it and hire their attorneys or whatever they need to do or push back. This is fairly straightforward. So the law establishes harsher penalties for squatting crimes, including a second-degree felony charge against squatters who damage a home, a first-degree felony charge against those who fraudulently sell or lease a property. That's the big scams. And a misdemeanor charge against those who purposefully present a fraudulent lease. So that covers the gamut there. So in other words, if you're squatting, you got a problem if you don't get out, okay? And it looks like, well, it doesn't really matter. They're going to get you out and they're going to charge you. Where this is really going to help is these first-degree felonies against those who fraudulently sell or lease a property. This is what goes on right now. People will go out, they'll case neighborhoods, they'll see a vacant or abandoned property, they'll check it out for a few days. If they realize nothing is going on there, they'll go in, they'll change the locks. Neighbors don't really know what's happening, or they think, oh, someone's moving in, etc. Then they'll post for rent on Craigslist or other third-party websites, get you in, with a fraudulent lease. All they're looking for is first month, last month rent, maybe security deposit. They don't, either you pay them cash or they want a money order or something to that effect, and then they're gone. They may never come back once whoever's in the house is in the house. So that's problematic because those people are victimized by these we'll call it squatting, fraudulent scams, etc. So that's going to be really good to put a kibosh on stuff like that. So this is a long overdue thing. It's kind of sad when we look what's going on in across the country now, when people, like squatters have more rights in some locations than owners do, which is completely backward. And it just boils down to that typically the police go, we don't want to get involved. This is a civil matter, not an actual criminal matter. So you got to give props to Florida and the governor here for actually saying, you know what, we're not going to deal with this anymore. We're not going to, infringe upon private property rights for individuals that really own the property. So I think that's a very positive thing. And I hope more states will look at this as, good news and the template and adopt this and go forward. All right. So again, tenants, after a specific length of time, and legal property owners had to launch lengthy and expensive court battles to remove them. Not anymore. We have not had the same type of issues here as you see in California and New York, thank God. Nevertheless, the laws are really geared towards this, not necessarily being a fad, said DeSantis. Basically, the other, I don't want to get politics in here, but we know the locations, they're siding with the squatters. In fact, we've seen squatters move in and claim residence. This forces a massive, long, drawn-out judicial review before they can be removed. These people are never had a right to the property to begin with. And again, we've all heard about this, a couple times now. Earlier this month in New York, a woman returned to a property she inherited to find squatters living there. She changed the locks to get them out, and she was actually arrested instead of the squatters. So, which goes to show you how silly the law is, okay? That in various locations, that you're the owners, you can prove that I didn't lease it to them, didn't allow them, or whatever, and you're the one that's being arrested. So not a good scene. That's why I believe this change is long overdue, and will certainly help landlords and property owners, maintain their rights going forward. So interesting enough, again, we can keep going on and on and on, right? Basically, if with Florida, the issue is we have many seasonal residents who reside in the state half the year and leave their houses unattended when they return home to states of the north. People shouldn't have to worry that some rogue person moves in and tries to assert rights against the lawful property owner. And again, he says, DeSantis saying that he believes Florida is the first state to decisively handle this problem, which I think that's correct. So again, props to him for doing that. I think, personally, because we've experienced this on numerous occasions, I feel a little better now knowing that I don't have to run to the lawyers and have to jump through hoops to get somebody who's not there legally out, that we can go down a much quicker and easier path. And now there's going to be penalties, harsher penalties, so this will hopefully stop this, we'll call it, as he calls it, a fad, etc. It's just sad that it has to get to this, right? So folks, if you appreciate the information that I provide in this channel, if you do me the honor and hit that subscribe button, I thank you very much. And for those of you that are subscribers, if you could do me a favor and smash that subscribe button again, because you know how YouTube works, I constantly lose subscribers. So once again, thanks very much for watching the videos. And yes, I have not done videos for a long time. We're building a couple of businesses here. It's very busy. We're going to kick back into the video mode now. Lots of stuff on the go. Things are unwinding in the housing industry, and you're going to see some changes coming up as time goes on here. Going back to the squatting, this was interesting. So here's this dude. It's a TikTok video. So TikToker tells illegal immigrants how to invade American homes and invoke squatters' rights. So it's to the point where, you've got people coming in here that, he apparently is, Venezuelan national, came across the border. He lives in Columbus, Ohio now. He's out there basically saying if it's not inhabited, we can seize it. So, this guy's got what, 500,000 TikTok, subscribers or followers, and he's showing people, hey, this is something you can do. So these are problematic situations. You don't need people like this spreading the word as to how you can make life difficult and seize or these properties. So again, that's where this is an example of what goes on. There's people that have been in handcuffs, people that have been shot and killed trying to get squatters out, people that physically assaulted. Like the list goes on, and then you got some guy like this who's bragging about it and saying, hey, if you're illegal in here, invade American homes and invoke the squatters' rights. So this is what we have to put up with. And this is why laws like the one that was posted in Florida is a very, very good thing here. Now, the interesting thing about squatters' rights, too, because a lot of times squatters' rights, I guess you could say, are not known or not really, not known, but I guess not understood or correctly applied. So one of the things that, want to talk about here is that each state has their own squatter rights. Just as a side note, the current presidential administration in a recent statement said it was critical that local governments take action and that issues over squatter rights are watched by the administration but considered a local issue. So in other words, they're not going to do anything about it on a national level. They're just saying, hey, it's got to be dealt at the local level, not even well, state, yes, but even local county level as well too. So here's the thing, when you take a look at, what do owners of property do? They pay tax. What do squatters not do? They don't pay property tax. Okay, so you would think that counties and states would be pro ownership and helping them out as opposed to siding with the squatters. But again, I don't even know how to even comment on that. Just it's not really set up the proper way. As I mentioned, squatters are suspected of having to kill the 52-year-old woman in March, who entered her deceased mother's apartment, having traveled from abroad to hand it over to new tenants, and she was killed. So this is what goes on. We have to put the changes in to stop things like that. So squatters' rights by state. I'm going to comment on this in a second here, but you can see that the time period after which an illegitimate tenant acquires certain rights by U.S. state. So obviously, California and Montana, if you're in the property for 5 years, you can claim true rights to it. Places like New Jersey and Louisiana are 30 years. Different states are 18 plus years, 15 years, 10 years. Florida, where I'm at, it's 7 years. Now, I want to point this out because each state has its own kind of squatting laws, so this is not ubiquitous across the board. The terminology and the way the laws are laid out are going to be state by state. But since I'm in Florida, I'm going to talk about Florida law, and this is what goes on. So one of the things that people often confuse or they don't understand it, or they don't apply this law correctly in the squatting world is something called adverse possession. So Florida does have something, it's called Florida Adverse Possession Law. And typically someone who doesn't know the law fully would say, oh, well, this is a vacant house. I just took it over. I filed with the clerk of the court a document that I found online called adverse possession. This is my property, all right? So a lot of people actually do that. Some squatters try to do that. The problem is they don't really understand how adverse possession works, right? So as it says here, the idea of adverse possession can either seem like a justified transfer of land to someone who will actually put the property to a more beneficial use, or an unfair theft of land by squatters, all right? So the law of adverse possession says when an individual publicly moves into an otherwise neglected property and improves this property, they can be granted title to it after a period of time. All right. So yes, you're upkeeping the property, you're improving it. It's not an eyesore. It's not overgrown. It's not messed up. Like, in other words, you're living there, and you're cutting the grass, you're trimming the landscape, you're living there, and it's not looking run down, et cetera, right? However, Florida adverse possession laws require claimants to occupy a given property for at least 7 years, and either under color of title or payment of property taxes for 7 years. So you can't just occupy a property and say it's mine for 7 years. You actually have to pay the property tax on an annual basis. Then once that's been done, that's provable, you can then apply for this adverse possession way of acquiring the property. So each state will probably have different styles of this type of law. This is not a squatter's law. It's there's nothing that's called squatter's rights, right? It's usually these adverse possession type titles. So Florida has one, adverse possession. I've encountered many people who are squatting saying I filed an adverse possession document. It's my property. And it's like, no, it's not yours. And you got to unwind, that bullshit basically. and then, usually it's a legal process that can be unwound pretty easily, but because they have not satisfied, again, the improvement or the paying of property taxes. All right. So that's what goes on here. But I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that, squatters don't really have rights. I guess it's assumed they have rights because, local governments aren't equipped to really deal with them, or the police are saying, we have no way to deal with them. It's a civil matter. Therefore, you have to go through the eviction process. So if you think about it, there really is no, if I look at Florida as an example, there's no law against squatters, and there is one now, you see. So before it was civil matter, file an eviction and fight the court and fight the squatting entity or persons that are there. Now we're going to have something that's actually legit for the squat reason, so which is really good. So ultimately, the squat, how do you get rid of a squatter? Well, you squat the squatter. Okay, you squash a squatter or squat on him. There's ways to do that, and you know what? There's other ways you can get them out here, which we won't get into. But if you need to get somebody out, there's always a way. All right. So anyway, that's fun and games in the real estate world. So having said that, one of the things we're going to be doing here, I work in a office here, which is a real estate tech crypto incubator environment. We do lots of events here and meetups, etc. So if you're in the Tampa Bay area, look for us. Look me up, and you'll see that I post a lot of events and meetups locally. One of the things that we're doing is we're going to have real events here. These are paid for events. You come to learn, and you're going to get products and teaching and all sorts of cool things. So end of the month here in April, we're having a Flipping Without Fear event. We sort of focus on the zombie house stuff because we are associated with the zombie house flipping people. They're out of the office here, and one of my properties, as you know if you follow the channel, was on their show, and I've worked with the star of the show numerous times and other deals. So we're going to be doing a Flipping Without Fear, a little bit of zombie flavor, 27th to 28th of April. Who should attend? Real estate agents, investors, wholesalers, mortgage brokers, other real estate professionals, people who want to become a real estate agent. We're going to go do a deep dive into all the types of properties that are available and how you can acquire them and how you can earn income, build wealth with distressed properties, whether they're zombie or not, pre-foreclosure, probates, whatever. We're going to do a deep dive into that. So that's our scoop. You're going to see some stuff coming soon. There'll be a promo code, which I'm going to get probably early next week, and there'll be a sign up landing page and the whole bit. So if you're in our area and you want to attend, myself and one other gentleman will be hosting the event and teaching the event. So it's going to be kind of cool. We did a one day one a couple weeks ago that was well received. So this is going to be like the follow up. So much more intense. And again, we practice what we preach. We actually do this business. So you'll learn from people who are actually doing the deals right there. Okay. So anyway, more to talk about that. But that was it for today. Just wanted to touch base with the squatters issues. It's a positive, good thing if you're in Florida. Hopefully, other states will adopt similar laws because it's becoming an issue right now for legal property owners having to deal with this mess. All right. So anyway, guys, once again, thank you for the views, the likes, and the comments. Please share the video with your family and friends. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And I look forward to speaking with you in a couple of days. Thanks.